So, if you're Cadet 7 and there's an emergency, we want you to start this bow thruster. We need you to start this bow thruster. So let's talk about those emergencies. Looking at the station bill for the Ironwood, we've got 4 columns on that station bill outside of the name of the cadet, right? So the first column is emergency squad. Now what constitutes an emergency? Well, that's you'll hear the general alarm go off continuously for not less than, 10 seconds. So you'll hear a continuous ring of the general alarm for not less than 10 seconds, followed by some kind of an announcement as to what the nature of the emergency is. It could be a fire. It could be flooding. It could be man down, or a number of other things that fall into that category. So no matter what it is, we need you to start this bow thruster. Okay, if it's a fire, start the bow thruster. Unless, obviously, now I don't know if it's so obvious, but if you have to come into the compartment that's on fire to do the job, then back off. If the bow thruster space or number 1 hole's on fire, we're pretty much going to assume that we're not going to have a bow thruster. That's that common sense thing. If you can safely get to the bow thruster and there's a fire somewhere on the ship, start the bow thruster. Why? Well, that gives the captain a little bit of extra maneuverability, right? In case we need to maneuver into the wind, away from the wind, maybe the fire's in the engine and we lost propulsion. He can still kind of steer the ship a little bit with this bow thruster engine. Okay, we're not going to be doing any RFP&Ws, but we can still move the ship around. If it's a man overboard, that extra maneuverability comes in handy. If it's a medical emergency, same thing. We may have to maneuver in a certain spot for the wind or whatever, so a helo can come in and take that person off the ship. Okay, so let's talk about the man overboard. I think I kind of segued into it a little bit, but the man overboard, for obvious reasons, that rescue boat's going in the water, we need this bow thruster started. That's another reason why we do accountability, because maybe Cadet 7 is the one that fell overboard. And if we can identify that, that was Cadet 7 that went in the water, then I know Cadet 7 didn't start the bow thruster. We can get somebody else to take care of that business, all right? Abandoned ship. Now, if there's a scenario, it's just not going to be just straight up, hey, we need to abandon ship. Usually something leads up to that kind of catastrophic or that serious decision that the captain has to make, because he's the only one that makes that call, right? He's the one that makes the call to abandon ship, not you or I or anybody else. So typically something has occurred prior to rolling into abandoned ship. Maybe a fire started, so hopefully the bow thruster would already be in operation. But maybe the fire's somewhere else and you couldn't get to it. If you can get to it, then start the bow thruster and then go back to your abandoned ship station. So the signals you're listening for, like I said earlier, the emergency squad, continuous ringing of the general alarm for not less than 10 seconds. If you're out there or somewhere on the ship and you hear 3 long blasts, at least, 4 times, so 3 times 4, that's 12. If you hear that, then somebody might have fell overboard. There should be some kind of announcement that goes with it, but sometimes that's not always the case. Maybe the 1MC broke just at the wrong time. So the 3 long blasts, 4 times, man overboard, right? And then finally, the last one that we never really want to hear is a 7 short blasts followed by a long blast on the ship's whistle. That's abandoned ship. And just coincidentally, and I don't know if they thought about this or it was just a coincidence, but the word abandon is 7 letters. And then ship is just 1 long, right? So A, B, A, B, A, N, D, O, N, ship. All right. So, Cadet 7, your job is to get this bow thruster started if you can safely do it, so rapidly and quickly as possible. So one of the things you want to remember, don't forget this, but if you're Cadet 7 and we're underway, you might want to come down here to the bow thruster space and just do a walkthrough and make sure that everything looks the way it should. Valves are open, everything's lined up correctly. Because our policy is, when we get underway, the bow thruster gets started so we can maneuver away from the dock. It also gets started anytime the captain wants the bow thruster. But in this case, if we're moving away from the dock, the bow thruster gets lined up, it gets started in accordance with our light out procedures. And then when the captain's done with the bow thruster, he usually calls down, you can secure the bow thruster. So we're not really securing the bow thruster when the captain's done with it. We're just stopping the engine, right? Fuels is left lined up, sea chest is left lined up, everything's ready to go. So if you have to start this bow thruster, or anybody for that matter, if anybody has to start it, just pushing the start button, right? We don't secure all the valves and line up and all that stuff until the end of the day, when the bridge calls down to the engine room and passes a word, finished with engines. That's when we secure. Otherwise, it stays lined up all day. And hopefully, we never have to start it in an emergency. And finally, life raft number 4. That's where you go if you have to abandon ship. If you get on a life raft, keeping in mind number 4 is an even number, so it's on the port side. Line up in an orderly fashion with your shipmates. See who's not there, you know, take accountability, help each other out. If somebody's panicking, calm them down. If you're panicking, calm down. Right? We're all in this together, and none of us really want to jump into the water or get into a rescue situation or navigate into one of them rafts. It's a blast getting in them if you're in the pool, but if you're doing it and it's cold and it's windy and all that kind of stuff, not so much fun. Makes a good sea story though.